As I was contemplating just exactly what the planetary dance is doing for this next week ahead, a friend of mine reminded me that one of the celestial bodies, Saturn, which has been going through Aquarius for the past 2.5 years, is currently sitting at 28 degrees and some odd minutes of Aquarius, which happens to be my ascendant or rising sign, my rising degree. And I said to myself, this will be the third time in my life. It just works out that way for the way my chart matrix was put together for this particular type of energy to transpire. It's 1963 and 64 actually, and I'm just now getting used to having my feet underneath me, having moved from Daly City, California to Tokyo, Japan. And it is my sophomore year of high school. It's the springtime, and I've got a whole new set of circumstances. The second time that this transpired is 1993-1994 window, and I've just recently moved up from a spiritual community that I lived in for about 12 or 13 years, Southern California, to up here where I currently live on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. And so I look at those energies, and I just looking at what the ascendant might represent for any one of us. The ascendant it's a rather dynamic point in the unfolding process of the matrix of life for any one of us. It is the initial planting of a seed of potential to grow into what it may not be necessarily clear right off the bat, but this is an initiation point of presenting oneself to the world. It's kind of like the here I am moment within our chart, and it whatever the particular sign is that is on that ascendant, that kind of energy, and for me it's Aquarius, it's right there at the forefront. It says, I am an Aquarius. I have that Aquarian energy. And so if we're going to find some level of commonality, I'm not even sure that's the appropriate term, of energy that's going to be shared between us, this Aquarius energy is going to be radiating from me. And we will investigate that process and find out, where does my Aquarius energy meet with whatever energy that you happen to have, not only on your ascendant, but where your sun is. Well, for me, I have the sun in Aquarius as well as the moon and the Mars and Mercury. So there's a lot of Aquarius signature that I tune into rather readily. And Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. It's some might consider it the taskmaster, and for some it is exactly that. I'm less inclined to lean in that direction because I am an Aquarius, and Saturn is my ruling planet. And since this is the third time for this particular energy signature to cross the bow of my particular ship, I kind of wonder, am I getting ready to move somewhere? Because it's like not even remotely on my wavelength of considerations. perhaps more readily apparent might be the fact that each time this Saturn crossed over my ascendant, I was presented with or given the opportunity to uh, invent myself in a new environment. And as such, when we find ourselves in any particular location, uh, we can join with that location to, to find our footing, so to speak. Where in this particular landscape am I going to be comfortable? What am I going to be comfortable doing? Or am I going to be comfortable doing what it is that I need to do here? Well, being the Aquarian character that I am, I can pretty much bloom just about wherever I find myself planted. I'm just curious to know what is the seed that's being planted right now in my world. As I'm sitting here doing this, Saturn's within minutes of my ascendant. So I think we're just going to have to see on that. There's an essay consideration for this week, and to just to add a little bit of energy, a little bit of powder or fuel to the mix. This particular week that we're going into, Mercury, which has been working its way rapidly as it usually does through the sign of Aquarius, is going to be dancing right across that Saturn and my ascendant and going into Pisces. Mercury, what is the message that is on the table? For me, particularly here in this consideration, is, am I about to shift a version of the message that I sense I'm required to present? Perhaps. I think this is like that seed element. I'm not entirely sure what version of plant I'm going to grow this particular time. But this is the beginning of a 30-year cycle. That's what Saturn does, 28 to 30 years, where life lessons, very much a Saturn consideration, are on the table. And as it's life lessons and it's my ascendant, my hello world, here I am moment, what am I going to learn in this next cycle? I've already reached that, what the appropriate term, pinnacle, comes to mind, but yeah, it's a little edgy. I'm in my senior years. I just turned 74 a few weeks back, actually almost a month ago now, and I am that elder. I have a lot of living under my belt that literally fashions the words that I present in any moment, and the energy that I share with people comes from a long footprint of life experience that has brought me to this current moment. And I've, halfway through my life, a third of my way through my life, I learned there's this thing called astrology. This was back when I was 19 years old, and it's kind of like this altered the trajectory of my life considerably. I'm still on that trajectory and will be for the rest of this current incarnation, and I have this sneaking suspicion it's multi-incarnations long, this particular aspect of my journey. Enough about me. Let's take a look at the energy of who's speaking this week. Well, Mercury it's the planet that's speaking. It's going to dance across the life teacher process of Saturn while still, in that penultimate degree or degrees of Aquarius, which, if and I've heard this before, and it seems like it carries some merit in any consideration that as planets move through those final degrees of a sign, this last couple, 3 degrees of a sign, there may be, reticence that is there from this particular planetary energy. It's leaving an energy field or approaching the end of an energy field that it has been traveling within for whatever variable time frame that particular planet uses. Saturn, in this case, basically 2.5 years through a sign. And Mercury, 3 weeks, rushing through the sign. So you can kind of see there's just a little bit of difference between those two. So the Saturn has a time stamp that, it carries a little bit more weight to it than the mercurial trickster kind of energy would. And so, but even so, when they get to that transitional point in the sign where they're just about to go into the next sign, it's kind of like, oh, what are all the things, from a Saturn perspective, what are all the things that I learned or was given opportunity to tune into in this recent journey, 2.5 years, that I've been on, going with the Saturn going through Aquarius? And have I effectively utilized that energy in a way that allowed for me to grow? There's some people say there's tension in the air at this particular time, and for some people, I suspect that this is likely the case. For me, with the Saturn, not so much. The Saturn, it resonates very easily with the Aquarian energy to inspire, breathe in opportunity to actually engage with life in an effective enough way that life lessons are always on the table. Learning, teaching, experiencing. It's a process. So, for all of us now, this Saturn, which, by the way, I think it's, oh yeah, next week it's going to be shifting into Pisces as well. Mercury this week that's coming. Now, when I say next week, I mean the week after this next one we're about to go into, is when Saturn does its shift into Pisces. Mercury, the messenger god, goddess, has, the quicksilver kind of energy that, lights a fire under the process of communication. And right now it's in a control type position for planets within its sign of Gemini, which happens to be Mars. Mars is in Gemini, doing the dance and asking Mercury, which has been dancing through Aquarius currently, to give it some input, some inspiration, opportunity to invent something new along the realms of what it is that needs to be said, or how things may need to be offered in any particular situation. The Mars is an active energy, ruler of that Aries point, in the zodiac of, initiation, planting the seed, that new development, which this particular Saturn for me right now is stimulating. On this same day, which maybe I should pull up the chart. Oh, we were looking ahead in the chart. Technically, this is Tuesday, by the way. Get me so I can be seen. Tuesday, you guys see Mars is at 26. Wednesday, Mercury's at 26. Mercury goes to 27. Mercury's moving pretty fast, though. It's right near the end of 27. We go to Thursday. On Thursday, Mercury crosses Saturn. On that same day, Venus, I go back a couple days. Venus moving up on Jupiter. And on Thursday, Venus passes Jupiter. So we have these two planetary transitions, conjunctions that take place. And we already, dealt a little bit about the Mercury-Saturn dance right here on the final degree of Aquarius. But Venus and Jupiter over here in Aries, that energy of Martian drive, the sensing of wanting to initiate something new, which doesn't necessarily require, or maybe doesn't necessarily know what that new thing is going to be. It just wants to create something new. It wants to, take off, do something. So Venus and Jupiter, the two benefic planets, dancing together, think of the water beings that are behind me in the image that I chose for today. They are dancing. And Venus and Jupiter, Jupiter wants to expand. It wants to, touch as much as it possibly can. And Venus is that potential energy that seeks harmony in some level. And so we get this driving Aryan energy with the curiosity of Gemini, which is where Mars is right now, bringing people together in dance moves that may not necessarily or initially be comfortable, but there's a draw, a magnetic pull, if you will, to actually engage with one another to see where it goes. Thursday's a Jupiter day. It's jueves in Spanish. Jupiter. That expansive draw to, tap into the farthest reaches of the cosmos that you can discover. The farthest level of our awareness that's, just there beyond, in the Sagittarius fashion, just beyond what it is that we already know. And from a Piscean perspective, that inspiration to actually engage with levels of our imagination and creativity that may or may not have been stimulated to such an extent at this time. So these are the energies that are at work this next week as we do our dance with the celestial beings. I'm going to leave it at that because, those were the main focal points that I could see for this week. And, hey, I'm being stimulated. I got that Saturn dancing on my ascendant right now. It's like there's a life lesson, and Mercury coming along as opportunity to to stir the pot, so to speak, to invent language that can effectively represent what it is that is transpiring in a way that can touch into each of our hearts, each of our souls in such a way that we can say, I sense that, I feel that energy, and I want to participate with it. So that's all I got for this week. I got a busy week ahead. Lots and lots of things going on. So until next week, ciao.